Welcome back to Croft in North Yorkshire for another 7 races from the 750 Motor Club this afternoon at a now rather wet circuit. We've been had rain for those for the last race before lunch and during the lunch break as well, so it's wet all the way around the track, which I imagine should make the tyre choice for the first race of the afternoon, the F1000s, relatively easily. My name's Ian Sayman, Andy McEwen alongside me in the commentary box, and as I say, 7 more races for you this afternoon, including the 45-minute mini-endurance race for the Takiwa Road Sports Series featuring the Gas Shocks 116 trophy. But I guess this rain, Andy, adds an extra dimension to things, especially where the normal sticks and wings single seaters are confirmed.
Yeah, indeed. It's we've seen wet races already this year, though, for the F1000 Championship, haven't we, at Silverstone last time out, where the majority of the grid went out on slick tyres onto what was a very, very wet circuit. So I think they'll all be on the correct choice of tyre today, and that should suit them well. It's been fascinating, though, earlier on today in the couple of races we had before lunch to see just how this wet circuit is behaving itself, really, and how and where the grip is. The traditional karting line around the outside of the corners is not necessarily the grippiest part of the circuit, maybe because it's a new surface. There's not that much rubber that's been laid down on the racing line, and that's been catching a few people out. So if it stays wet now for the majority of the afternoon, it's going to continue that learning process for the drivers who may not have that much experience of this surface in the wet.
Absolutely. Also coming up this afternoon after the F1000s, we've mentioned the road sports already, we'll see the first of 3 races this weekend for the Demon Tweaks Yokohama Low Cost Championship, the Race Part 750 Formula Championship, the first part of their double header, that continues tomorrow, and then the second races of the day for the BCV8s and Gala Performance Toyota MR2s. They go home after today's racing, but the F1000s, they are the final race of the day, and they're back here for a third and final race of the weekend tomorrow. So, a grey and drizzly afternoon now here at Croft. Shortly we should, though, have the cars for that first race of the afternoon brought out onto the circuit. Preparations ongoing here at Croft because next weekend the British Touring Car Championship is in town. And that, of course, one of the, well, probably the biggest event that they have at this North Yorkshire venue all season. So preparations very much being made for that, although there's a full programme of club car racing and bike racing as well throughout the season here at the circuit. Of course, it's a very busy year as well for the 750 Motor Club. We're probably getting on for a third of the way through it. We've already had races at Brands Hatch and Donington Park, Silverstone and Mallory Park. After this weekend, it's off to Anglesey in a fortnight for several of our championships, including some of those that are here this weekend. And then after that, a little pause before we head to Snetterton and to Brands Hatch and to Spa in the first 2 weekends of July, before going to Cadwell Park at the end of the month. Lots more racing to come in the 750 Motor Club season, and much of it will be live streamed. The next event after this that will be live streamed will be the event at Silverstone in August, when we're on the international circuit, so very much looking forward to that one. But for the moment, we've still got another day and a half's racing here at Croft, which is a great pleasure to be back here. And as you can see, the F1000 cars are about to be released out onto the circuit. There they go, behind the course car. So the F1000s, these little superbike engine single-seaters with, no doubt, wet tyres on, head out onto the circuit. They'll be brought round onto the grid initially. They'll use the short circuit link to get there. And then we will get onto the grid prior to a final green flag lap.
Yeah, looking forward to this one. These are some of the fastest single-seaters you'll see racing in the UK. They are very powerful and weigh next to nothing, and with the wings and in dry conditions, as you said, full slick racing tyres, the corner speed is phenomenal. The acceleration also is mind-boggling, and this is a circuit that will test all of that. There are some really high-speed corners around the back of the circuit where the downforce will really start to work and increase that corner speed. But then through the tight technical sections, the change of direction, the acceleration, the punch out of the corners, is astonishing, and it's a big grid as well. It's been fascinating to see this championship growing and growing in popularity over the last sort of 18 months to 2 years, and here we are now with 20 cars on the grid, and it's great to see this championship continuing to thrive now in the 750 Motor Club.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a change of organising club over the winter, and as you say, Andy, this has resulted in numbers seemingly increasing. I think we've had numbers in the high teens for the first 2 meetings at Brands Hatch, and at Silverstone it starts with a 2 here at Croft, and a very healthy grid indeed, and you don't need many of these cars to make a very good race, so we're in, I'm sure, for an absolute cracker. It's going to be a 15-minute race, this one, not 30 minutes plus a lap, as some of the others have been, so just a straight 15-minute race. In qualifying, the times were in the 1:17s, 1:17.68 the pole position time, but I don't think we'll see anything like that in these conditions.
You can see there that wet tyres definitely are the order of the day. The entire grid appears, from what we can see out of the window, to be running on wet tyres. That's definitely the sensible choice, I think. It's not a long enough race, really, that you could maybe afford to take the gamble of starting on slicks and hoping the track dries out. I think that over 20 minutes, that you pretty much got what you've got, really, and it's going to stay wet for the foreseeable. An interesting grid we've got lined up here as well, because it is a big grid. If you have a bad qualifying effort, then that is even more hurtful towards your prospects in the races. And the driver starting at the back of the grid, and we'll run through that grid in a moment or two, Rob Wellham, one to watch for right from the back of the grid is Rob.
Only he's not there.
He's not there.
We can see out of our window, Rob Wellham not at the back of the grid. He only managed to get, I think, 2 laps in qualifying. So I'm afraid to say, unless he's at the end of the pit lane, which I can't see he is, Rob Wellham, the youngster from Ipswich, is going to be starting. So the green flag lap gets underway then ahead of this 6th round of the 365Hosts F1000 Championship. So we've got this, now we may even get 2 green flag laps, given that the conditions have changed since qualifying. But let's take a look at the grid first of all. And it is Matthew Booth, who won last time he raced here at Croft, that's on pole position. Dan Gore, a winner at Brands Hatch, is alongside him on the front row. Dan Clues and Elliot Mitchell. Mitchell's gone particularly well to be there on row number 2. Lee Morgan, former champion, is alongside the championship leader, Paul Butcher, on the 3rd row of the grid. Reece Lysett, who made his debut in car racing here last season, he lines up 7th alongside the Indian driver Alok Iyengar. On the 5th row, Rob Bailey, who leads the Clubman Cup, has Dax Ward, very experienced driver in these cars, alongside him. Adam Walker and the debutant in this category, Mark Betts, switching over from RGB, he lines up on row 6. Daniel Levy and Al Rhodes on row 7. Andrew Wheels and Matthew Millett in his first season in F1000 lines up on the 8th row of the grid. And completing the field, another newcomer, switching over from the Clear 182 Championship, is Evan Falkingham. Peter Lake, the only invitation class driver this weekend, is alongside him. Christopher Hill, we saw him have problems in qualifying, so too did Rob Wellham, but although it looked like Hill was on the grid, Rob Wellham, I'm afraid to say, is not.
I think, Ian, we're also missing possibly Matthew Millett, unfortunately. There was a gap where he should have been 16th on the grid. Andrew Wheels was there ahead of him and Ed Falkingham there behind, but no sign of Matthew, unfortunately. We are, by the looks of it, going to get 2 green flag laps. This, as Ian was saying, is because the conditions have changed since qualifying. It was dry, this morning when the cars qualified, hence the fact we were seeing such rapid lap times. The pole position time, 1 minute 17.68, was well underneath the lap record of a 1 minute 19.2. But now that it's wet, the drivers get an extra green flag lap just to familiarise themselves with where the grip is, or in this case, perhaps isn't.
And you can see on the shot there just how much spray is being created by these cars as they go down the pit straight. There, no doubt, other parts of the circuit as well. There are some trackside puddles, and I guess one of the things to look out for is, are there any actual puddles on the circuit as well. I can't see any at this stretch, but it's a newly surfaced track. And now there is Rob Wellham, number 5. Now that's good news for him in the sense that he's heading I think, towards the end of the pit lane. So he'll be able to take the start from the pit lane, but of course he won't have had chance to go out there and see what these conditions are like, Andy.
Yes, and I'm not convinced he will have driven this place in the wet since the resurface either, so that's going to be a real challenge. He'll be thrown straight in at the deep end, and he will be perhaps having to be a bit cautious on the opening lap or two, but such is his natural pace, he's likely to catch the back of the pack fairly quickly, so the time that he will have to learn the conditions may be slightly limited. We see quite often with newly resurfaced racetracks that in the wet they can be very slippery as the chemicals rise to the surface, and that doesn't really seem to be the case here. The lap times in previous race meetings, and indeed earlier on today, in fact, in the wet, were not a million miles off what a previous dry lap time would have been. So whilst it will be slippery, maybe not quite as slippery as some of them are expecting.
Just to put in context what Rob Wellham possibly starting from the pit lane means, he's 6th in the championship coming into this weekend. He had a DNF in the first race of the season at Brands. That was after he was challenging Colin Brown for victory there. I think it was a drive shaft failure. He had a disqualification for technical infringement from the second race there, but since then he's had 3 podiums, 2 third places and a second last time out at Silverstone, so he has had a good run, which seems to have come to an end. Pole position man, Matthew Booth, coming around then. He is 3rd in the championship coming into this weekend, had a DNF in the second race of the weekend at Silverstone, won the first one there, his debut win in the category. He's been a champion with 750 Motor Club in the past. Dan Clues, 2nd in the championship. Well, he is just behind Matthew Booth on the grid, immediately behind him. He lines up P3. So Matthew Booth and Dan Gore. Gore is 5th in the championship coming into this weekend. Did it look like there was one heading into the pit lane there, Andy?
Yeah, Dax Ward, who I thought might have been electing to start from the pit lane so as to avoid trouble, but I think may have an issue. We'll see whether he joins in the field after everyone else has gone.
Okay, 5-second board is up then, so the race about to get underway. It's a 15-minute race for the 365Hosts F1000 Championship, and it's underway now, and it's a pretty good start from Matthew Booth. The number 14 car of Adam Walker hasn't got away at all. It does finally get away now, a little bit delayed, but it's side by side for the lead of the race, and it is the number 2 car of Dan Clues trying to go around the outside of Matthew Booth for the lead of the race. Dan Gore in the Mattel Racing Run car had dropped back a little bit. That's the 69 car of Eddie Falkingham, the former Clio racer, going through, doing battle with Peter Legge. But the lead is already heading out through the chicane onto the back straight towards Tower Corner. It's Matthew Booth in the lead of the race. Dan Clues in 2nd place. And is it Dan Gore, I think, in 3rd? There is one off onto the
Elliot
grass
Mitchell,
as well.
that is, I think, pulled off going down the back straight with a mechanical issue. So Elliot Mitchell, the number 11 car, is out, unfortunately. Dax Ward and Rob Wellham, by the way, did take the start from the pit lane. They're some way behind the pack, but as I suggested, actually, they've already caught the back of the pack and are now starting to overtake people on the run out of Tower. 2 cars that were slow away, by the way, Ian, were you spotted Adam Walker, and a few rows in front of him, Reese Lysett also struggled to get off the line. They did both get going, though.
Yeah, Reese had an encouraging debut here last season, had a 3rd and a 4th place. Those were his first car races, still only a teenager. Leaders coming into the complex for the first time then, and it's Booth still leading from in 2nd place Clues, 3rd is Dan Gore, and the 4th place car at the moment looks to be that of Paul Butcher, doesn't it? I think. No, he's in 5th. It's Lee Morgan, isn't it? Number 56. That's in 4th place as they come up and over the line for the first time.
Yep, there is Paul Butcher, the yellow and purple car, the perennial runner-up in this championship. He must hold the unofficial record for most wins without taking a championship. He's finished 2nd twice. He's finished 3rd a few times as well. Paul Butcher really could do with a bit of luck to try and take the championship. There's Alec Iyengar going up the inside of Rob Bailey. That was for 6th position. The yellow car, number 33, dropping down the order slightly, but Rob Bailey started 9th place actually, so he's gained some ground from where he started, but slips behind Alec Iyengar, who goes well in the wet, does Alec, so keep an eye on him. He might be able to chase down the leaders over the next few laps.
Those yellow flags you can see are because of the Elliot Mitchell car that is stranded on the right hand side of the circuit on the run down to Tower Corner. That is Reese Lysett, number 17, trying to make good for his poor start, and does he manage to get that move done on Rob Bailey? Difficult to tell as they disappear into the spray, but he has done, so he's made that stick. There's number 56 then, Lee Morgan. Well, he is a driver with a very impressive CV. He was the champion in 2013 and has had 27 career wins in the F1000 Championship. He's running there in 4th place at the moment. Here is the battle between that man, Lee Morgan, and number 80, Dan Gore. Dan, who won the reverse grid race at Brands Hatch. His only win of the season, the former Caterham racer. switching to F1000 for this season. Leaders go over the line just in front of them though, and the gap between them has come down this time by about a quarter of a second. So Dan Close is closing in on Matthew Booth, but it's still very tight for third and fourth between Dan Gore and Lee Morgan as well as they turn their way through Clairvaux on lap 3.
Yeah, we're about 11 seconds off the fastest lap time from qualifying earlier on today to show just how much less grip there is now in race conditions. The leader's then down the back straight. There is Lee Morgan in 4th position, trying to go after Dan Gore, and there is that lead gap. So as Ian said, it came down by a couple of tenths on the previous lap. Dan Clues, very experienced driver in the green number 2 car, works his way out of Tower Corner, and I would say he's getting even closer now to Matthew Booth. The trouble is, though, overtaking is now made even more difficult by the fact that it's rather wet out there, because the racing line will be slightly grippier than running offline. You've got to go offline to overtake people.
Well, you say that, but one of the racing highlights for Dan Clues was a win here at Croft last year in the rain. Yeah. So he clearly likes it in these conditions, does Dan Clues. Oh, and he has a big sideways moment. No, not really like that. He has lost a few car lengths to Matthew Booth as a result of that, I think, but I'm sure he'll gather his thoughts again and fight back.
Yeah, Matthew Booth then pulls out a few car lengths advantage. He'll have been glad to see that in his mirrors, if he can see anything out of his mirrors, because there is, at high speed in particular, quite a lot of spray being kicked up behind these cars. 11 minutes and 20 seconds then left on the clock as they race out of the hairpin once again, and the lead gap that was 0.64 seconds is now 0.89, so it goes back out to more or less what it was a lap ago. Dan Gore's still 3rd, 4th Lee Morgan, 5th Paul Butcher. Alec Iyengar is 6th and is catching him fractionally, I think, with Reece Lysett up to 7th now after that poor start. So Reece started 7th, he's back to his original grid position now.
But look at that, Rob Wellham just flashing up on your screen there, up to 10th place from the pit lane. He is 17 seconds behind the leaders. But let's have a look at his lap times. He has done a 128.58, so only half a second off the fastest lap of the race, set by Dan Gore in 3rd place at 127.96.
No sign of Dax Ward, though, who did take the start from the pit lane. I noticed there were yellow flags at Sunny on the 2nd lap. I wonder whether he's either gone off or pulled off over there, so he was the other driver that was coming through from the pit lane, but you're quite right, Ian. There is Rob Wellham, the silver and orange number 5 car, just working his way through Tower Corner. There, his latest victim, Mark Betts, the number 88 car, who is dropping steadily back. So Rob Wellham then, his best lap time in the race so far, a 128.5, which is only a few tenths of a second away from the front running pace, and that, Ian, is in traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do. He's got another 9.5 minutes left in that race. He's just caught up with the number 47 car then of Daniel Levy, who I think is having his first time out this season in the 365Hosts F1000 Championship. Right with him now as they come through the complex to come towards the end of lap number 5, and he's going to try and get him around him going into the hairpin. He's doing a great move that, so Rob Wellham makes up another place. He's now 9th, but he's got probably about 4 seconds now, I would think, to make up to the next car ahead of him, which is going to be Rob Bailey, isn't it, in 8th place, number 33.
Yeah, Rob really could do with a good result here. As you mentioned, he's had one non-finish and a disqualification, and you can't usually count a disqualification as a drop score either, so he really cannot afford another bad race result now. Here is the battle for 2nd place. Dan Clues has dropped back significantly, over a second slower than Matthew Booth on the previous lap. Possibly a moment somewhere for Dan, and now of course he's focusing on his mirrors more than he's able to focus on what's going on in front of him, and so the lead gap, I'd say, is going back out again on this lap. Dan Gore and Lee Morgan nose to tail then at the far end of the circuit. Then the fight for 5th between Paul Butcher, Alec Iyengar and Reece Lysett, who is one of the fastest drivers on the circuit at the moment. Reece Lysett, the number 17 car, is catching the pair of them. A top 5 may still be doable.
Meanwhile, Adam Walker, a bit further down, he's just got up to 13th place at the expense of Peter Legge down into Tower Corner. He was one of the drivers to stall on the grid, of course. Now, the leaders, meanwhile, the leader, singular really, is coming into the complex once again. It's 2nd, 3rd and 4th battling now. Number 2, Dan Clues, number 80, Dan Gore, and 56, Lee Morgan. And there is a gap back then, isn't there, to Paul Butcher in 5th place, just not quite able to live with the leaders this time, as we've got the move going on now for 3rd place. It's Lee Morgan alongside Dan Gore. I think he's fully ahead before they even get to the braking area for Clairvaux. So it is 56 Lee Morgan now that goes up into a podium position for the first time during this race.
Indeed he does, so he gets into the top 3 and will now set off after Dan Clues in front of him if he can. Rob Wellham, meanwhile, is lapping faster than the race leader now, down in 9th position. He's almost on the tail, in fact he is on the tail of Rob Bailey, and then he'll have some clean air in front of him, so we'll really be able to see what he can do. Meanwhile, Lee Morgan has Dan Gore trying to fight back. Behind, Reese Lysett was setting up for a move against Alec Iyengar. That would have been for 6th position. Did he make that one stick? They're side by side, I think, coming out of Tower, just in the background there. The blue car, I think, about to lose a position. So a couple of drivers who really seem to be relishing these conditions, albeit having to do a lot of overtaking from the back of the grid.
Well, absolutely right. And Rob Wellham, I think, will just be ruining the problems that he had in qualifying, and presumably right up towards the start of the race as well, which prevented him from getting out onto the grid. But Evans is going very well indeed. Could just see that battle going through, and there's a battle going on up at Sunny as well. That is Wellham has now cleared the number 33 car of Rob Bailey, so he's done well there to overturn that advantage. He's got up into 8th place now, and again he's got a bit of a gap to make up to the next car in front. About 7 seconds this time it will be to the fellow teenager Reese Lysett.
Yes, well, Reese Lysett is now ahead of Alec Iyengar, which I think we saw at the far end of the circuit. So he completed that move out of Tower and now sets off after Paul Butcher for a top 5 finish. There is Butcher, the yellow and purple number 42 machine, works his way down to the first corner, stays well away from the curbs. Reese Lysett doesn't. Alec Iyengar goes off into the gravel trap, and he'll do well to get out of there because the car reverses into what is actually not a particularly deep gravel trap, but it's a strange sort of gravel they've got there. It's like a ball bearing sort of stone, which is very, very difficult to dig your way out of, and Alec has just discovered that, so I think he just took a bit too much speed into the corner, lost the rear of the car, and that in the end is a fairly easy place gain by Rob Wellham.
Yeah, it was in similar conditions in Formula 3 in about 2002 it must have been, that Jamie Spence went off there, and I was standing behind the Armco barrier at the time and fell over in my haste to get out of the way of a F1000 heading towards me. Anyway, back to the race, because we've got a real race on our hands for second position, because Dan Clues has got Lee Morgan climbing all over his gearbox now as they turn their way through the right-hander at Sunny, and also Reese Lysett is doing battle with Paul Butcher now for 5th place. Those two side by side as they make their way through Sunny, heading back down the straight towards us. Butcher just about hanging on, but this is a determined performance from young Reese Lysett, number 17, as he tries to get ahead of the very experienced Paul Butcher. Lots of wins and run up in the championship. We've now, though, got a safety car out because and it just makes it out in time ahead of Matthew Booth, and that will be because of Alec Iyengar's car that is off at Clairvaux.
Well, this, as they say, changes everything, doesn't it? Because Booth had pulled out a decent margin over Clues and perhaps more significantly Lee Morgan. The people it really benefits, though, are Reese Lysett and Rob Wellham, who is into 7th place now, of course, Rob Wellham. Rob was 17.5 seconds off the race lead. Well, he won't be now. The flip side of that is that we're going to lose some racing laps. So when we do go racing, he won't have quite as much time to continue making the progress. But there is Rob just going through the silver and orange car. That is the reason for the safety car. Alec Iyengar's car off into the gravel trap at Clairvaux. So nearly rolled out of the gravel trap, and then reversed back in and got well and truly beached.
Now there's only 4 minutes left to go, so I suspect we may not see too much more running in this race. They will try and get Iyengar out as best they can. The problem we've got is we've got the first 4 cars ahead of the safety car and the rest of them behind it. So what I guess they might try and do, if they can get rid of that car quickly, is wave these through in front of the safety car somehow, but I'm not quite sure how that will help us thinking about it.
Well, the safety car did initially pick up Matthew Booth, didn't it? 'Cause we saw it.
That was a little bit late on the scene. That was probably the problem there. And everything worked out okay, which was good news, but it just means the safety car is in the middle of the pack rather than at the front of it. So let's give you a rundown on the order. 65, Matthew Booth it is that leads. Number 2, Dan Clues is in 2nd place. 56, Lee Morgan is in 3rd. 80, Dan Gore is in 4th place. In 5th place is number 42, Paul Butcher. 6th is number 17, Reese Lysett. Rob Wellham, number 5, now up to 7th position. 8th to number 33, Rob Bailey. Daniel Levy, 47th, 9th. And Mark Betts making his debut in the championship. He's doing this meeting at Cadwell Park as well, I think. He switched over from RGB Sports 1000, so he's well used to racing bike-engined cars, but sports cars with treaded tyres and no real aero on them. So it's been a bit of a baptism of fire, and he says it's all about learning, and if we could get a top 10 out of the weekend, then that would be a bit of a bonus. Now, Alec Iyengar's car there is being taken away, so that should be behind the barriers shortly. But we now have this situation whereby we have 2.25 minutes to go. We've got the first 4 cars now heading down to Clairvaux, and the rest of them behind the safety car heading into the hairpin.
If things finish as they are now, by the way, Ian, I reckon that Matthew Booth and Paul Butcher will be tied on points. Matthew's 9 points behind him at the moment and is set to score 9 points more than him if things finish as they are now. Dan Clues was only 1 point ahead of Booth, so he will, of course, fall behind him. So as things stand at the moment, early days in the championship, I know, but it looks as though we might have a joint championship lead situation going into the second race later on. That is, unless we go racing again and unless we get any more changes. But as you said, with time ticking away, we've possibly just got enough time to finish this lap and maybe get one more racing lap in, but the safety car still is not at the head of the pack, is it?
Yeah, so the officials in race control will be working out what the best way to deal with this situation is, but we do have this situation. We've got the safety car out there, we've got 1.5 minutes left on the clock. Worth mentioning that the wins so far this season have been split between Colin Brown. He had 2 at the opening round of the championship but wasn't at Silverstone, isn't here. Then also at Brands with a win for Dan Gore. As we said, Matthew Booth won the first of the races at Silverstone, and the second race at Silverstone was won by Piers Pryor from the back of the grid in only his second race in the category, which ended with the drive of the weekend, backed by Talk Raceware Award at Brands, at Silverstone, I should say. And that was another race where rain played its part, wasn't it? In that one, I think we'd got a wet half of the circuit and a dry other end of the circuit, and it was a real dilemma as far as tyre selection was concerned. Not so today.
Well, yes, because the part of the circuit that was wet was properly wet, as in lots of standing water, lots of puddles, a bit of aquaplaning, but the pit straight was dry, and so the tyre choice was tricky, because as far as the drivers and the teams were concerned, it wasn't raining, but elsewhere it was. The leaders have just gone through, Ian, and seen a last lap board.
Yes, they have indeed. So we are going to finish this race, I'm afraid to say, under the safety car conditions, but they are now on the last lap. The
lights are out.
Safety car lights are out, so the safety car is going to come in this time, which means that we can have a jolly good battle for 5th backwards, I suppose, but the leaders were still under yellow flag orders. We'll see if we do get a green flag when the safety car comes in this time, or whether it stays under yellow. There was a yellow flag actually still on the start line gantry. Are we going to get a green flag? The answer is, we are going to get a green flag. So we can have a battle for 5th backwards, but not for the lead. So the leads are just making their way up towards Barcroft. They're well ahead, but a change there because it's Reece Lysett that goes through on the inside for 5th place, but then Paul Butcher tries to fight back. I thought he was going too wide, and Rob Wellham is right behind him as well. So this fight for 5th then, heading onto the back straight. Yeah,
Reece Lysett, I think, was defending from Rob Wellham and then ended up almost out breaking himself and sort of dived up the inside of Paul Butcher. Nice move it was, though, and now Butcher under pressure from Rob Wellham for 6th position as they run down towards Tower Corner. Into the braking zone they go. He's gone through and Butcher's gone off. I can see out the window. Paul Butcher's gone off straight onto the grass. There he is. Oh, that's a shame for Paul, and that will now comfortably hand the championship lead to Matthew Booth as long as he survives the remaining half a lap.
Well, it's not even half a lap for Matthew Booth because he is already out of the hairpin for the final time. Matthew Booth comes up to the line, the checkered flag is made ready, and Matthew Booth wins for the second time this season in the 365Hosts F1000 Championship by just 1.33 seconds from Dan Clues. 3rd is going to go the way of Lee Morgan. 4th to Dan Gore, but who is going to be 5th? The answer to that question will be answered shortly. Those cars are making their way into the complex now for the final time. It's Reece Lysett and Rob Wellham who are about a car length between them then as they turn their way towards the hairpin for the final time. Can Wellham make a late bid into the hairpin? I think he decides that having come from the back of the grid, he'd rather settle for 6th place than a DNF. So it's going to be Reece Lysett that takes P5 in car number 17. 6th goes to number 5, which is Rob Wellham. 7th to number 33. Which is Rob Bailey, and 8th and 9th over the line right together there, and it's just Daniel Levy 8th by a quarter of a second from Adam Walker, and Mark Betts it is just 12 100ths of a second behind, rounds out the top 10. Paul Butcher, after his spin at Tower, is classified 11th. Our Rhodes 12th. Eddie Falkingham, Andrew Wheels and Chris Hill complete most of the finishers then at the end of that 15-minute race for the 365Hosts F1000 Championship. So a slightly confusing end to that race there, but Matthew Booth it was that took the win from Dan Clues. The best lap of the race did go to Rob Wellham, didn't it? A 1:27.67 as he fought through from the back of the grid to take 6th position.
Yes, a bizarre end to the race, but a good end to the race for Matthew Booth with his 2nd win in as many race meetings. He'll now be hoping that history doesn't repeat itself with a non-finish in race 2 later on today. It's a triple header as well here at Croft, so the fact that he's on good form is a good sign for his championship chances. Dan Clues still frustratingly chasing his first victory of the year as well. That is his 3rd podium. It's the 2nd time that he's finished in P2, but hasn't quite been able to take a victory yet. So there's confirmation of the result then. Booth takes it by 1.3 seconds in the end over Dan Clues 2nd, Lee Morgan 3rd, Dangor 4th, and Reese Lysett, after the poor start, finishes 5th, and Rob Wellham, having started from the podium, finishes in 6th, with Rob Bailey, Dan Levi, Adam Walker and Mark Betts rounding out the top 10. A fascinating race, and that will now give Matthew Booth a clear championship advantage. So, cars then down in pit lane. The drivers will very shortly get out of the cars. James with Stanley there with the winners, Garland, and it's going to be fascinating to hear from the drivers after what was a challenging race there in challenging conditions, and to find out what they thought of the new Croft surface in the wet. So there we go then. The victory goes the way of Matthew Booth, and let's hand down to Josh Barrett, who's with our podium finishers.
Well done, Matt. Another win in the F1000 Championship and in tricky conditions.
Yeah, it's not great that. We were looking for a dry weekend, but it's typical Yorkshire weather. But yeah, I'm happy with it win. Happy with getting pole as well. I think that's fastest lap for a Jedi around here, but wanting a race, so it's unofficial, but I'll take it.
3rd ever meeting in a single seater, and you're getting quicker every time.
Yeah, I'm loving it. They're great cars. I can't believe how much grip they get. Even in the wet, they've more grip than anything else I've ever driven. So yeah, I love the car. It's just brilliant.
And what are they like in these conditions to drive?
They're a bit twitchy. If you put your foot down a bit too hard, you might be going backwards. But if you're gentle with it, then she'll treat you right.
Got a reverse grid as well to look forward to over the weekend. How do you think overtaking around here?
It's going to be tricky, especially if it's like this still. But there's a few places to go, so we'll see what we can do. I'll just take it easy.
Well done. Yeah. So Matthew Booth, our race winner, 2nd time this year in the F1000 Championship. In 2nd place was Dan Clues. Dan, again, tricky condition during the spray, so what was it like for you?
To be honest, it wasn't too bad. Following Matt again, he's beaten me again. He drove really, really well. Yeah, car worked perfectly. I could see a couple of places where I was quicker than him, but I couldn't get close enough to try and catch him. I thought I might get a chance if the safety car came in at the end, but didn't quite clear up in time. But yeah, all good, no problems at all.
Obviously fast bits, slow bits around this circuit. How do you sort of set up the car up for that?
Well, we had a bit of a play yesterday in testing because it was sort of damp and whatever else. So it's, yeah, the complex is really tricky. If you think you've got the really quick corners out the back, you've got to set them up for the quick stuff really, otherwise it'll bite you.
And now 2 more races, a busy weekend for you guys. How do you look forward to the rest of it?
Look, can't wait. The circuit here is mega. The new surface is amazing. The times we were doing in quali in the dry this morning were way under the lap record. But just, yeah, it was really, really good. Just can't wait for this afternoon now.
Well done and good luck for that.
Thank you.
So 2nd place man Dan Clues. In 3rd place over here Lee Morgan. Lee on the podium. I think you had a bit of a problematic start to the season, so you must be pleased to be here.
Yeah, it's good to be back out. We missed the last round with some technical issues with the car, so we came into the weekend not really knowing where we were going to be at. So yeah, to stand on the podium after what was a great qualifying is really positive going forward for the weekend.
Would you like it to dry out, or are these conditions for you?
I mean, looking at the pace we had in the wet there, I'd be quite happy if it stays wet. If it goes dry, I think we made some good changes that should hopefully push us a little bit forward towards the front. So yeah, fingers crossed for the rest of the weekend. Of
course, a reverse grid race to look forward to later on in the weekend. Is this a place in these cars you can overtake, or is it be difficult?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think last year I ended up the other way around. I finished 8th in the first race and ended up on pole for the reverse. If the guys at the front get a good start, obviously it's going to be hard to catch them, but you just got to make the most out of the first few laps and try and get as far up the grid as you can, and yeah, take it from there and just hopefully maybe drag another podium out of it.
I guess it was handy actually to have the wet conditions yesterday, just to learn what this track with a new tarmac is like.
I never tested yesterday, so yeah, I was going out there a little bit sort of unknown, so just sort of having 2 green flags, that's kind of helped get a feel for it, and could tell it's pretty grippy still. So yeah, it was just a bit of a learning curve for the first few laps, and I think as I got into the groove, I possibly, if I could pass Dan before the safety car, maybe I would have had a chance to maybe catch Matt, but you know, what happened, so.
Well done. The third place, Lee Morgan. Second was Dan Clues, Matthew Booth, our race winner in the first of 3 F1000 Championship races.